Well, ever since Ian Jackson's commitment to North Carolina, we've speculated that the coaching staff was all in on Jaren Stevenson as a potential fifth commit in the 2024 class. But now, Jason Jordan, we know for sure.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, February 9th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me today is our guy, Jason Jordan, our college basketball recruiting insider. I want to thank you so much for joining us and tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Coming up on the show, got some great news for Elliot Cadeau that will potentially benefit both he and the Tar Heels long term. And we'll get to know defensive back transfer Mr. Derrik Allen and his family ties to the UNC program. But before we get there, we're going to talk Jaren Stevenson. And by the way, we'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official recruiting insider sponsor across the Locked On network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Jason Jordan, North Carolina, already, we've talked about this, has 4 commits in the class of 2024. Just a windfall of talent. Great stuff there. As we've talked about, though, they are not done. We've speculated maybe Jaren Stevenson, maybe Trentyn Flowers and others, but it's clear now that they have zeroed in on Jaren Stevenson as their primary target for commit number 5. Here's why we believe that. Last Tuesday, the entire coaching staff, Hubert Davis, Brad Frederick, Jeff Lebo, and Big Sean May were all in attendance to watch Stevenson and his team Seaforth play, all sitting in a line on the baseline. Hubert Davis just taking it all in like this. Jason Jordan, do you agree with me that that's what this indicates?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an unwritten, not even unwritten. It's probably written down somewhere when when the staff comes with everybody, even probably some of the managers were in the stands. That means that they aren't just giving you lip service when they say that they are making you a priority. They are absolutely showing and proving, and they did that in full force. I mean, he didn't disappoint. I think he had like 39 and whatever it was a season high, 39 and 14. I think
I got the numbers here. Yeah, he scored 30 of their 56. So over half their points, 14 boards, as you said, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 5 blocks. That's insane.
Yeah, I think it may have gotten him hype that they were there. We'll call it a hunch. So, everybody's felt like that, Jaren was Carolina's to lose. And I mean, taking that stand and it's given off like obviously your priority, but also we want to close this thing. Like we don't, because you're going to get hot, and so we want to, if we have the momentum, let's go ahead and, let's close the deal. Yep. Let's close the deal. Yeah.
Well, because I know a lot of Tar Heel people were worried because there was some Duke talk. Maybe he, do I remember correctly? He took maybe an unofficial visit to Durham or something like that.
Yeah, I heard some rumblings with stuff like that. So, I mean, they make sense. The timing of it makes a lot of sense for that. And then, as your star grows, other things can come into play. I mean, Duke can come knocking, Kentucky can come knocking. And none of even if you have the upper hand, you don't want the girl looking at the other star quarterback across town. You know what I mean? Because he throws touchdowns too. And he may or may not have beaten your high school. We'll use that analogy. So it's just like, let's go, let's go all in. Let's, knock this thing out. And coaches are like that though. They don't like the stress of recruiting. None of them do. So they always want to go ahead and close the deal as early as possible.
Jason, how often do we see this level of attendance from not only the head coach, but all three? We see like, oh, Hubert Davis and one assistant is at this place, or
Right.
this assistant's like, how often do we see the head coach and all three assistants together in one gym for one guy?
Yeah, that's pretty rare. It's usually they'll do it after somebody is committed, just to kind
Hmm.
of show that you're a part of the family. We told you we're a family and we're all here for you because we're all family. Or when they're like, "Hey, man, I'm not just talking. I'm showing you. You're our only guy. We're putting all our cards on the table. We want everybody because we know this will be tweeted out. We know the pictures will be here of all of
And
us
they
sitting in a
were,
row.
yeah.
So the other guys that we're talking to, we don't even care if they see that we're here full force for you and not them because you're our guy. So we hope that means a lot to you. We hope it shows you how much we want you. And we're hoping that that's going to secure your commitment really soon.
And to that point, what does it say? Like if I'm Trentyn Flowers and I see this pop up on social media, how does that make me feel? What do I think? How are recruits processing that kind of thing when they're not the one that the entire coaching staff is there for?
Well, I mean, it shows that you're not the top tier. You're the next tier, and it shows who they want and who they'll take. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, yeah, it will raise some questions. I mean, I've definitely heard it. I mean, that's not uncommon for moms to say, "Well, we saw that you went full force. Did you not know that my kid was playing?" I've heard that a million times. Did you not know that my kid was playing on Tuesday? I mean, you came on Monday. Can you guys all come out on Tuesday because that would really show us some stuff. And most of the time, that's oh no, we got a scheduling conflict or this or that. But that is very common for the. I'm sure they got those calls or texts like, "Oh, okay, well, I see who y'all really want." I've heard that cool million times. I mean, these parents don't hold back with these coaches now.
No.
I'm telling you, they let them have it. Your favorite coaches, the ones you think are on a pedestal. Oh no, these parents don't care about none of that.
Whew. Well, and to the point about the coaches, Jason, and I know it can come from different places, but who initiates a step like this? Is that typical? And I know you can't speak to this exact scenario, but
Right.
is that from Hubert Davis down, like, hey, boys, lock up, let's go, all four of us are in? Or is that coming from, like, let's say, in this scenario, I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's say Sean May has been the lead recruiter and he says, hey, Coach Davis, I really think it'd help if all four of us were there for this game. How does that usually go off?
Usually, especially how Hubert's run things, it's usually him top man down. But it can come from the lead assistant or whoever's the lead on that player to be like, hey, I think it to your exactly what you said. Hey, if he really is our priority, what game can we all get to? Like,
Hmm.
because it's starting to heat up, man. He's averaging 30, or he just had 38 the other night. Yeah, I saw coaches tell me this. Did you see all the impressions on the tweet, the highlight tweet he had? Man, we gotta close this thing. I've heard that multiple times. That's not even uncommon. So all these things you wouldn't think so because you're like, oh, these guys are above that. They're so mature. No, they're not. No, they're not. They all look at these things. They all have social media experts who look at stuff like that and look at the likes on it and look who's really trending and things like that. Of the people that you want, that said. So all these things come into play. But yeah, it's usually, especially for North Carolina, because he was very hands-on, which is why he's so successful. And so I'm confident that was his call.
And especially in this scenario, in terms of what game can we get to, thankfully, this is just down the road
Yeah,
from Chapel Hill. And so not a very
yeah.
difficult travel. Well, from a guy who Carolina hopes will be the fifth addition to this recruiting class to one who is already locked up, Elliot Cadeau received a prestigious national honor and one that could long-term provide benefit both to him and the Tar Heels. Jason and I will explain in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our brand new betting partner at the Locked On Network because they are the #1 sportsbook in all of America. And if you're new to FanDuel, man, that's even better. Why? It's got so many great features on their app to make betting on sports fun and easy. So download the FanDuel app right now to bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. Man, this FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid instantly for your winnings. I personally use this for all my daily fantasy stuff, and let me encourage you that what I'm telling you is right on. It's great stuff at FanDuel. So join today at FanDuel.com/locked-on to claim that no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. Again, that's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Jason, by the way, who's going to win the Super Bowl on Sunday?
Definitely have the Chiefs winning.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind seeing Jalen Hurts take it, but I don't see it happening. I don't know. I have a hunch.
Give Mahomes 2 weeks to get that ankle healed up. He's going to be good to go.
Yeah, I think he's coming for that. I think he's coming for that hardware. That's my guess.
Yes, it'll be fun to see. Well, folks, Elliot Cadeau, you might know or might be aware that he has some family connections to Sweden. We'll let Jason just tell a little bit more about that. But because of that, he has been called by Sweden to be part of these national team qualifiers for the upcoming FIBA World Cup. Now, a little bit behind the scenes on it, Sweden is not going to qualify for the event, but there is another qualifying window that they are able to take part in here coming up in later February. There are 14 players called for this. From what I've read and from everything I can understand, they will keep 12, but a great opportunity at the least for him to go and participate with some of these professional players and experience that as a high school senior. Now, Link Academy, where he's playing at down in Branson, Missouri, is off to a hot start this year, playing really well. And this is an opportunity for him to potentially take a next step. So, Jason, would you just talk a little more about this, some of the behind the scenes on it and some of these connections?
Yeah, well, I think it's his mom. I think it's his mom, not his dad, who is Swedish.
That's my reminder. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's his mom. I think her name is Michelle. But yeah, I mean, he played for the national team this summer, a junior national team, and he was dominant. I mean, he dominated us. So that's really where his coming out party was. He had 36, I think it was 36 points in the title game. And that was where the star was born. That was where everybody's heads were turned. And so that's when Elliot Cadeau was
became Elliot Cadeau.
Yeah, exactly. And so then he went to Peach Jam because he was out. Went to Peach Jam and averaged about 15 a game and really kind of, had some starring games there, but showed all the, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's the one, he's the next one. And so, and he wasn't even 100% at Peach Jam. He talked to me about that a couple times. And so, then he went to Elite 24, and every time the ascension was up and up, and then everybody heard he was going to play for Link Academy. He's done really well this season. So, I to be honest with you, I'm still shocked that he committed so early. I thought it would play out a little bit more, but I know there are different factors in play there. But huge pickup for North Carolina, and then the experience that he's going to have with this national team is going to be invaluable for sure, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, because we talk about like that experience he had this past summer with the junior team, and I think people might hear that and think, oh, it's just more of that. No, this is like the senior club. This is sweet. Like this is playing for Team USA on the dream. It's like that for Sweden. This is not some junior thing. I mean, this is massive. You look at these 14 players. He is the only high schooler, at least that I can tell, of these 14. And so, I mean, what does that say? And I know Sweden is not some world national basketball power, but still, what does this say about what a country believes in a 17, 18-year-old young man? Right. They would call him to be part of this.
Well, they know that he's the future of basketball there. And so they want to lock him into that. It's just like we do here. Like we lock our guys in early with the junior national team and stuff like that. And then there are sometimes when I remember Christian Laettner.
That's exactly
over Shaq, which was always something people bat an eye at now. But you got to remember Laettner and Shaq in college to really get the grasp of that. But just to keep them a part of the family, because you would think, oh, USA basketball school, I'm going to play, but when over here it's different because, there's celebrities over here. And so in the summer, they're like, I ain't giving them my summer to play in USA basketball and stuff like that. So it's just a way to lock him in because they look at him, clearly they look at him as the future of the Sweden national team. And so they're locking him in early, and that's going to give him, I mean, man, who was it that said, I've seen quotes from Christian Laettner talking about his experience with the USA team. And I mean, obviously that was quite a team.
I mean, that was the original dream team.
The original dream team, so that's invaluable experience. And that's something nobody can say. To your point, nobody's going to be able to say, oh, I played with this guy and that guy. And so, I mean, while he's getting great training here at Link, playing a national schedule, that's just another tier that's going to help him grow as a player, and his ascension should certainly continue.
Now, as we said, there are 14 players called. There will only be 12 that compete in these two qualifying games. There's one against Germany, one against Estonia. I mean, is there any realistic shot of him to make a top 12 when it's like, this is the only high schooler on this thing, right? Like, it's kind of like it's an honor to get called, and you're part of maybe a little bit of a training camp before the games actually play. But is there any realistic shot that he actually makes the roster that goes to play the games?
I mean, a part of it is like, maybe we lock him in and he doesn't really expect to make it because, part of it is kind of like, I don't want our basketball to be looking like we're looking for high school kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, save us, 15-year-old. We know you can't drive, but just save basketball for the country. We were that horrible. So, it's a little bit, you got to be careful with the PR of it all. You know what I'm saying? But now if he gets down there and cuts up, which is totally possible, it wouldn't shock me because I think Elliot's a bad man, and he's had a strong year for Link. They just lost their first game to Montverde this past weekend. I mean, they got blown out of the water. Sorry, it's just the truth.
I know.
But Elliot was the one that showed up. Elliot was the one that was, this season he's been a distributor because we've talked about this before. He likes to pass more than he likes to score. And so, but in this game, he had to read the room and saw that they needed scoring. So he was the one putting up points in that game. So I was really very impressed with how he played against the juggernaut that is Montverde Academy.
Juggernaut is right, Jason Jordan. And so even if he's able to get a couple days at part of this training camp before the games take place, what could even just a couple games or a couple days worth of training camp with professionals do? Like, what are there legit things he can take away from just a couple days of that?
Absolutely. I mean, even just soaking up knowledge, picking the brains of the veterans and learning different nuances and things to, moves to make and counter moves to make in this given situation. And maybe you should think about like this because this guy did this. And when he overplays, then you can know the tendency that is, and he's like a student of the game. Like, so he's going to, Elliot is very much a sponge. So a guy like that, and everybody's not like that. I mean, it's a throwaway quote to say, but he really is. So a guy like that who really soaks up knowledge very quickly. I mean, you can see it he plays like 3 plays ahead. Even in the course of a game, you can see it. He's always like this, always head on the swivel, always eyes up, never sped up, always dictating pace and tempo. Guys like that who really can make pivots on the fly mentally. They soak up knowledge and they retain that knowledge. And so for him to be there with, veteran squads and older guys who have, played at the highest level, that's going to be invaluable for him. And that can, that can take your game to a whole nother level.
That's why I'm asking. Elliot Cadeau playing basketball the way Bobby Fischer plays chess, always 3 moves ahead. And by the way, folks, do not worry. This is not anything that will ruin his, it's not some pro thing that stops him and he misses game. Like, this is totally above board, totally legit. So do not be afraid there. Great stuff from Jason Jordan, getting to talk about Jaren Stevenson and Elliot Cadeau today. Love that. Coming up, John Garcia Jr. joins us, our college football recruiting insider, to talk about Georgia Tech transfer Derrik Allen, who's coming to Carolina to play with his brother. We are joined now by our college football recruiting insider, John Garcia Jr. The man you see behind him, those watching the clock, is ticking to 2024. And John always joins us thanks to our friends at LinkedIn. We'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On network. Folks, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's again why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. John, you never want to get hit by those terms and conditions, man. That'll put you in a bad way. Hey, folks, it is no secret that last season, North Carolina's defense struggled. That's probably putting it kindly, under the return of Gene Chizik to the helm. One of the main culprits of that was the secondary. And so there have been several secondary transfers in already this season. So we want to be, or this offseason, I should say, we want to begin now unpacking those, getting to know these guys a little bit. And I thought it would be, John, appropriate to start with the little family affair. Carolina, another defender, Marcus Allen, who got some run towards the end of the season. His brother, Derek, a guy from the secondary, transfers in from Georgia Tech, from my homeland. Let's go ATL, baby. So Derek comes after 3 years of experience at Georgia Tech, 1 year of eligibility left. And obviously we know, Jason, there's some changes in the coaching staff in the secondary as well, which will obviously play a factor. Take this where you want to go with it.
Yeah, look, I think this one, first of all, makes a lot of sense, right? I think when you're retooling any position group, there's got to be kind of the veteran guy who's been around and knows the ins and outs of the processes. And I think that's a role that Derek will occupy, as you mentioned. Just 1 year of eligibility remaining. He spent time at Notre Dame. He spent 3 years at Georgia Tech. He's played like 35 college games. He's been around and experienced more than just talent can live up to. He was a high-level recruit coming out. I think that matters. And you mentioned the family connection. Obviously, the chance to play with little big bro at this point.
Yeah, right.
Got to be cool, right? For that entire Allen family, after they all starred there in the Atlanta area, as you mentioned. But I think there's kind of a bit of an underestimation going on with what he can do on the field. I mean, this was a borderline top 100 recruit coming out of high school. Remember scouting him plenty down in Marietta. And this was a guy that just looked and felt like the next big balanced safety. And I think, right around that time was when we really started to see the game change and kind of evolve to this very much basketball on grass, spread first, throw it everywhere type of sport. So I think physicality wise, he was a little bit on the front end of that from a height and weight standpoint. He was always big, 6'2", 6'3", well over 200 pounds. So I think it took him some time to gain his footing because of that. But since that point, I think you've seen a lot of balance and versatility in Derek's game. He's comfortable playing, that deep classic center field safety, but his frame suggests he could be a bit of a hybrid too. Come down in the box, play a little bit of nickel linebacker, dime linebacker, whatever it may be. So I think that physical versatility and the experience and instincts that come along with that maturity can pair very well with moving around amid a secondary that's going to have some growing pains, right? A lot of new faces coming from a lot of new places, new coaches in place. On top of that, he's going to be that continuity, fill in the gaps kind of guy. So it might not be evident on the stat sheet. It might not be evident in the starting lineup at times. But when you get into the rotation, you're game planning and you're trying to get guys in the right position, I think that type of experience is going to be invaluable for this Carolina secondary, which, like you said, Isaac, it needs so much work going into 2023, into the 23 season, I should say. So I do think this one makes a ton of sense. And there's some motivational factors beyond that, beyond even family. This is it for him. It's a 1 year, one shot kind of deal. No more COVID year, extra year of eligibility, none of that stuff. This is it for Derek. So there is an outside chance, and I know few are talking about this. There's an outside chance, hey, if you want to continue playing football, you got to hit it right now. You got to hit it right as a super senior or whatever we want to call him from an eligibility standpoint. So I do think that's a heck of a reason to get up and get after it every single day. So I like this on and off the field for North Carolina.
That's great. And I think something that plays into it, John, is what you talked about with that versatility. Because as we know, under Gene Chizik, Carolina kind of plays what essentially is a base 4-2-5, where you've got the ability to be on that back end or come up into that nickel position, as you talked about. If you're this coaching staff, if you're Gene Chizik or Jason Jones or Charlton Warren trying to bring it all together as position, do you want to get a guy slotted into one of those roles, or do you want to have the ability to, like, hey, in a given scheme or against a given opponent, we might shift you around a little bit? Yeah, which way do you lean on that conversation?
I probably lean towards the latter, right? You want everybody to be able to theoretically play every single spot, and I think the timing of these guys getting on campus early is going to help with all of that. Obviously, you got spring ball ahead. And that's where you make these experimental moves, right? Hey, can Derrik play in the box more than not? How comfortable is he playing deep at this stage of his development? Smart player, instinctive player, how much of that factors in? And I think, yeah, the opponent is going to have a huge say in what the rotation and personnel eventually look like. If you're playing Pitt, in 2022, it's, let me get this guy in the box and get ready to stop this pro-style attack. But if it was the year prior, you probably line them up deep because Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison, those guys were throwing it around everywhere. So it depends on the year and the scheme that you're facing. But I think in both roles, I think Derrik Allen can find a fit. And again, in between the margins, he really will help everybody else kind of get up to speed because there's going to be that combination of new faces and an experience going forward. And he's got, the counter to that on his side. So I think you experiment in the spring and then you help it get settled into the fall. And I think, yeah, his role will probably be closer to the line of scrimmage if I had to guess right now compared to that traditional center field role.
Okay, that's good to know. Man, it would be fun to see two siblings starting in the defensive secondary together. That's just one of those cool things that for them, I mean, we always talk about the wins and losses and stats and all this, just from a family perspective, John, like what a neat story that would be to tell for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's just not something you see all the time. I mean, even siblings that are, known for that Carolina blue, like you think of the Drake May's family, right? I mean, they're known for it, but how much of it did it really overlap, right? It wasn't directly on top of each other. So for the Allen brothers to be able to do it in this modern age of the portal and going against convention in that regard, I think it's really cool. His dad was a guy we communicated, or their dad was a guy we communicated with a lot during the recruiting process. Always excited to see their names anywhere on a publication or any of that stuff. So to see that on the same roster, I know is something that they only dreamed about. So even though it's only going to be for, the next 10 months or so, pretty darn cool to see it come to fruition almost no matter what happens.
That's great. And listen, folks, let's always remember the humanity in this, that at the end of the day, these are young men just having fun playing together. This is a dad, as John just talked about, who just thinks it's cool to see his boys' names in publications and in writing. Man, if that doesn't tug at your heartstrings, I don't know what does. As John said, spring practice just around the corner. Carolina kicks off on March 5th, so we are less than a month away. Wild stuff there. John Garcia Jr., thank you for helping us get to know Derrik Allen a little better. We're already, enthralled with Marcus and what he brought at the end of the season last year. Should be a fun year to see what the secondary does trying to come back from last year. That's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Big thanks to both Jason Jordan and John Garcia Jr. for joining us to talk basketball and football recruiting. Coming up tomorrow, we get ready for Clemson coming into the Dean Dome on Saturday. Y'all, I don't know what else to say. You just got to go do it. Hopefully this players meeting coming after the game on Tuesday night will have done something. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. Make sure you follow both Jason and John on Twitter, and you can follow me at Isaac Schade. Shoot the show an email, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. always taking nominations for the Heel of the Week and the Heel of the Week. Would love to get that from you. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show. Listen, we are less than 200 subscriptions away from 5,000. We'd love to get there before we hit March. Smash the like button and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to check out Locked On's brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Myself and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court throughout the college basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and anywhere else you get podcasts. Folks, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. And until tomorrow, peace.